70 million shekels. That's the amount of cash vanishing from Israel's economy every single day. But picture this. You book your dream vacation, but instead of taking off, you get a flight canceled notification. It's not a technical glitch. It's because an entire massive logistics system is, well, slowly freezing to death. Thousands of flights have literally vanished from Israeli skies. Ben Gurion Airport, once the beating heart of the Middle East, is now so quiet you could hear your own footsteps echoing through the halls. But here's the kicker. Tourism didn't collapse because of the explosions. It collapsed because of the silence. The silence in those canceled signs. The silence in technical jargon like risk assessments and GPS interference stuff most travelers don't even understand. So, what's actually going on? How did one of the world's biggest bucket list destinations just drop off the map? In this video, we're peeling back the curtain on the whole story. If you'd visited Israel back in 2019, you'd have to elbow your way through crowds just to get into Jerusalem. Lines of tourists everywhere, cameras out, and tour guides basically screaming to be heard over the noise. And now, you can stand in the middle of a world-famous landmark and hear nothing but your own shoes hitting the pavement. It's not just a dip in tourism, it's a total vanishing act. The drop in international visitors is so steep that the numbers, they don't even make sense anymore. Millions of people who used to show up every year, they've just stopped coming, period. But here's the real deal. Tourism isn't just about people rolling suitcases. It's a multi-billion-dollar chain reaction. One canceled flight isn't just an empty seat. It's an unbooked hotel room, a restaurant with no diners, a tour guide out of a job. It's an entire industry hitting the pause button. Ben Gurion Airport, which used to run like a well-oiled machine, now feels more like a forgotten train station. It's not that it can't operate. It's just that there's no one left to serve. Why did giants like Lufthansa, United, or Emirates turn their backs on such a goldmine of a market? The answer isn't in the explosions you see on the news. It's something invisible but way more powerful. The disappearance of reality itself. But what makes this even weirder is the silence. No chaos. No panicking crowds. Just nobody. Hotels are still open, but the rooms are empty. Shops are stocked, but there are no buyers. Places that used to thrive on crowds are now just waiting. Like a stage that's all set, but the audience never showed up. So, what's the real story? Is it just the instability? If it were that simple, this would have been over a long time ago. Because the truth is, not every inch of Israel is a conflict zone. And not every flight is grounded. Yet, the system is still frozen. Why? Because this isn't a tourism story anymore. This is a story about perception. And in a global economy, perception is often more powerful than reality. If this part blew your mind, hit that subscribe button, because next, we're diving into what's really keeping people away. And trust me, it's not what you think. If you just glance at the headlines, it seems pretty cut and dried. War breaks out, tourists vanish. End of story. But the reality? It's way more complicated. Because here's the paradox. Israel hasn't exactly ground to a halt. Life goes on. Kids are still heading to school. Cafes still smell like fresh espresso. People are still rushing to work. Honestly, if you turned off the TV and stepped out onto the street, you'd think everything was totally normal. In many areas, if you weren't checking the news, you'd barely notice anything was off. So, why did tourism just implode? If it's not because every corner is a danger zone, then what is it? The answer lies in something most people don't see. It's not the bombs, it's not the streets. It's the system. Think of tourism as this giant machine with thousands of moving parts. Planes, hotels, visas, payments, and the big one, insurance. If just one of those gears jams, the whole machine turns into a pile of scrap metal. And right now, those gears are choosing to stop. Not because they can't run, but because they're allergic to risk. Airlines don't wait for a missile to hit the tarmac. They just need one whiff of instability to pull a U-turn. A flight isn't canceled because the pilot is scared to fly. It's canceled because no CEO wants to bet that the schedule will actually hold up. And that's all it takes. A flight isn't grounded because it can't fly, but because nobody can guarantee it'll land as planned. There's a huge difference. Travel agencies are in the same boat. They don't just sell experiences, they sell certainty, a predictable itinerary. But the second uncertainty enters the chat, their product evaporates. You can't sell a vacation when you're not even sure how it's going to play out. So, they just stop. And then there's insurance, the puppet master behind the whole game. When the fine print starts flashing words like risk exclusions or sensitive zones, the message is loud and clear. You're on your own, buddy. Are you really ready to bet your life savings on a gamble where the house always wins? Here's the kicker. It's not that you don't want to go. It's that you can't go the way you used to. No reliable flights, no guaranteed schedule, no financial safety net. Tourism, which is supposed to be about relaxing, has turned into a high-stakes gamble. And who wants to bet their hard-earned vacation time? But let's say you actually find a flight. You decide to go anyway. Everything looks fine. What happens next? This is the part nobody talks about. Even if you could get there, you probably wouldn't want to. Not because of some obvious danger, but because of the vibe. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know if your flight home will get axed. You don't know how long you'll be stuck if things go south. Suddenly, a vacation isn't a vacation anymore. It's just a waiting game. Tourism didn't collapse because of an event. It collapsed because of uncertainty. Something you can't see, something you can't exactly measure, but it's powerful enough to make millions of people stop in their tracks even before they've hit book. If this story feels familiar not just in Israel, but anywhere facing a shakeup, hit that subscribe button, because next, we're going deeper than the system. We're talking about human psychology, and that is the real factor that decides whether a destination thrives or vanishes from the map. If you ask a random person, "Are you scared to travel to Israel?" most of them won't give you a straight yes. They don't necessarily think they'll be in immediate danger the moment they step off the plane. They aren't constantly imagining worst-case scenarios. But they're still skipping the trip. Why? Because the issue was never just fear. It's uncertainty. No one can tell you for sure what next week looks like. No one knows if things will stay chill or if the vibe will flip overnight. A peaceful morning can turn into a messy situation in just a few hours. And for a traveler, that's a deal breaker. It's not that they're afraid of risk, it's that they can't measure it. You can deal with a clear risk, but you can't plan for something that has no shape. There's a big difference. At its core, tourism is a promise. A promise that you'll get to relax, explore, and come home with great memories. But when uncertainty enters the frame, that promise is broken. No one wants to sink their money, time, and expectations into a maybe. Would you? And that's where everything starts to shift. Even if you decide to pull the trigger and go, the experience isn't the same. You stop being a tourist and start being a professional situation monitor. During the day, you're sightseeing, taking photos, walking around. But at night, you're doom scrolling the news. You're listening for every weird sound. You're scanning for any red flags. Not because you have to, but because you can't help it. A trip designed to make you forget the world suddenly makes you hyper-aware of every little detail. That's not a vacation. That's high alert mode. And that state of mind, it's exhausting. Not physically, but mentally. You aren't relaxing. You aren't really there. You're just surviving. Then, there's the elephant in the room that no one talks about. It's not danger, it's money. Imagine you're mid-trip and your flight home gets axed. Now you have to stay an extra few days. Or weeks. Hotels? On your dime. Rebooking? Good luck. Insurance? Might not cover it. Suddenly, your dream vacation turns into a math nightmare. It's no longer an experience, it's a massive liability. And here's the funniest paradox of all. What makes people hesitate isn't just direct danger. It's the fear of getting stuck. Not knowing when you can leave. Not knowing how much it'll cost. Not knowing what's next. You can face a risk, but you don't want to be trapped in it. Finally, there's something even more subtle. The vibe. You could be in a perfectly safe spot, but still not feel safe. Greece or Cyprus are just a short flight away, offering the same Mediterranean sun but with zero what-ifs. When travel becomes a stressful probability game, the human brain takes the path of least resistance. You can walk through a perfectly normal city, and still feel like something is off. Not because something is happening, but because you think it might. People don't go looking for adventure when what they actually need is a good night's sleep. Tourism isn't just about the location. It's about how you feel. When that feeling evaporates, everything else falls apart. It doesn't matter if the hotels are stunning, the landmarks are iconic, or the itinerary is perfect. You still won't want to go. And that's what's really going on. It's not an infrastructure crisis. It's not a logistics problem. It's a shift in how humans perceive risk. Tourism in Israel didn't vanish because of a conflict. It vanished inside the minds of the travelers. If this part made you see things a bit differently, hit that subscribe button, because in the next part, we're going even deeper into real stories from people living through this. And that's when the full picture really starts to click. If you want to understand what's actually hitting the fan, don't look at the revenue charts. Look at the people. In the heart of ancient Jerusalem, a place that used to be a human tidal wave of pilgrims, there's a tour guide standing in total silence. He's not talking about the conflict. He's not debating geopolitics. He's just staring into the void, asking one painful question: where did everyone go? Before all this, his schedule ran like a Swiss watch, one group after another, back to back. And now, just blank pages. It's not because he lost his touch or his passion. It's because the single most important raw material for this industry people has simply evaporated. And he's not the only one feeling the ghost town vibes. His colleagues, the very soul of these streets, are quietly jumping ship. Some moved into finance, some went freelance, some are just trying to keep their heads above water. They didn't just lose their jobs. They lost their reason to show up. But this isn't just about the wallet. It's about the psychological scars. Talk to a local about those sleepless nights. When the city falls silent, that's when the tension starts talking loud. Sleep isn't rest anymore. It's a state of permanent high alert. Not because of an explosion, but because of the thought, it could happen at any second. You can handle that for a week. But for months, this kind of exhaustion doesn't come from a single shock. It comes from the cold, hard repetition of it all. People here keep going. They take the kids to school. They go to work. They grab their coffee. But keeping going doesn't mean they're okay. It's just a brave face on a nervous system that's being worn paper thin. Now, ask yourself, if that's the reality for the locals, what's in it for the tourists? On paper, travel is an escape from pressure. But here, the pressure doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. You're not worried about a work deadline. You're worried about your flight being wiped off the board. You're not stressed about your boss. You're stressed about things escalating. That's not a vacation. That's a state of limbo. And here's the bitter truth. People in the travel biz didn't just lose their customers. They lost the world they belonged to. The ancient streets are still there. The monuments are still standing. But the most sacred thread connecting this land to the world, peace of mind, has snapped. If you're realizing this story is about way more than just tourism, hit that subscribe button. Because in the next part, we're answering the most brutal question of all. What's really stopping travelers from coming back? And why is this crack in the system so damn hard to fix? Optimists love to believe that the second the dust settles, planes will just start landing again. Tourists will flood back in, and everything will go back to business as usual. Sounds great on paper, right? But in the real world, the economy doesn't run on vibes and prayers. Tourism isn't a light switch. It's a delicate ecosystem. And right now, that ecosystem is being dismantled from the inside out by 4 cold, hard barriers. First up, the nightmare of protracted uncertainty. Travelers don't buy the now, they buy the future. One quiet day doesn't mean stability. One normal week doesn't mean safety. When the future doesn't have a clear timeline, the human brain hits the default setting. Abort mission. You might take a gamble for a weekend trip, but nobody bets their entire family vacation on a maybe. Then, we have the aviation doom loop. Airlines don't operate on emotions. They run on cold, hard optimization algorithms. A flight route only exists if it hits the triple T: traffic, trust, and timelines. Right now, all 3 are basically at zero. When airlines pull out, a scary domino effect kicks in. No flights, no tours, no tourists, no reason for airlines to come back. It's a perfect loop, but it's a suicidal one. You can't vacation in a place where just getting there is a logistical headache. And here's the part that keeps tourism ministers up at night: brand erosion. Tourism isn't just about geography. It's about branding. A place doesn't have to actually be dangerous to be perceived as dangerous. It just needs enough people to believe it is. In the global consciousness, Israel is slowly shifting from a cultural destination to a risk zone. This doesn't happen overnight. It stacks up with every news alert and every viral clip on social media. You can fix hotels and resume flights, but you can't just throw money at a broken reputation. Tourism doesn't crack because of reality. It cracks because of how that reality is framed. Finally, the deal breaker: the flight of the neutrals. The group that actually keeps the industry alive isn't the political activists or the die-hard supporters. It's the normal people, the folks who just want a nice beach, a cold cocktail, and an easy trip. They don't hate the place. They just have other options. Why choose a complicated destination when Greece or Spain are sitting right there with zero drama? Tourism doesn't compete with danger. It competes with convenience. And the moment you become complicated, you've already lost the race. So, remember, tourism doesn't collapse because of a single event. It collapses because trust is disrupted and normal people walk away. If this perspective hit home, hit that subscribe button. Because in the finale, we're asking the big one: when this all ends, can we ever truly go back? But here's the most interesting twist. If you look at this story from a different angle, it's not just a crisis, it's a puzzle. And every puzzle has a solution. In the travel industry, there's a simple rule. You don't necessarily have to eliminate risk. You just have to manage how people perceive it. Destinations that have bounced back from crises before didn't do it by just sitting around. They did it by rebranding, focusing on relatively stable zones, and most importantly, creating predictable experiences. Think small-scale tours, limited itineraries, highly curated experiences. These aren't meant to replace mass tourism. They're meant to rebuild trust, because in this phase, trust is the only currency that matters. And here's what most people miss. Times like these actually open a window for a very specific crowd: the early movers who are okay with a bit more uncertainty than the general public. People who want to experience a place without the selfie sticks. Shorter lines, no crowds. A completely different vibe. But the real question is, are you looking for total comfort or a rare, raw experience? There's no right answer, just the choice that fits you. One day, things will shift. The planes will start taking off again. Those canceled signs will vanish. And the streets, the ones that are so quiet right now, will buzz with voices again. Tourists will come back. That's almost a given. But there's a tougher question. Will that feeling of safety come back at the same time? Because in travel, reality is only half the story. The other half is how we feel about it. A place might be stable, but if the world thinks it isn't, then for a traveler, it's still a giant question mark. Sometimes, what makes a destination off-limits isn't what's actually happening on the ground. It's what people believe is happening. This isn't just an Israel story. This is how travel works everywhere. So the question isn't, when does it end? It's, when does the trust come back? And trust, it doesn't come from an official announcement. It comes from time, from experience, and from the way the story is told. If you were the traveler, what would you do? Wait until the coast is 100% clear? Or embrace a little uncertainty for a once-in-a-lifetime experience? No right answer. Just your call. If this video gave you a new perspective, drop a comment below. Would you be willing to travel to a place like this? Or would you play it safe? I'd love to hear your take. And if you're into the stories behind the economy, travel, and how the world really works, hit that subscribe button. There are so many stories like this where the surface is just the beginning. Quick heads up. This video is based on aggregated info and analytical perspectives. It's not meant to push you into or talk you out of any travel plans. The final call is always yours. Thanks for sticking around until the end. See you in the next one.